I get so
Hi.
excited every time I see that opening.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Yeah, we have an opening. It's an opening.
Welcome to the Wednesday Club.
Wednesday Club!
Wednesday Club!
I am going to be extra incoherent today because I am radiating with happiness because in 30-odd hours, I'm going to see Wonder Woman. The feature-length film, the first feature-length live-action studio release filmed version of the story of comic book character Wonder Woman. And that is who we are going to talk about today.
Oh, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah,
I
you
wonder
guys.
why
I
you
thought
gave me
you
this cape.
It's an interesting coincidence that you both showed up so aptly dressed today.
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah. Taliesin just loves tiaras, and I just
Really,
love
to
wearing
be fair, I do.
evil capes.
Can you
I do love tiaras.
spin just enough for them to see, not fully rotate, but like they need to see the back. I mean, if the camera will allow, spin. But
Can you?
yay!
Can you? I can't.
Oh no, we can see it. You're good.
Okay.
Special shout out to Sax because he actually gave me that as a present, and it's the best. But we needed a.
Sax is the best.
You're letting Matt wear your Wonder Woman cape. That's so nice.
That's because she's.
Gifts of Wonder Woman go to everyone.
Yes, it's,
She's following Wonder Woman's compassionate example.
There actually have been gifts of Wonder Woman all over the place today. We've been giving away. We actually, do you want to open it and show it off? So there's a
Yay!
limited
Can we
edition
open
pop
that?
vinyl. Yeah, open it, tear it open like there's no tomorrow. You can ruin the box.
Amy Dallen's Wonder Woman Christmas
Anything you like,
special.
although-
It's Wonder Woman Christmas, y'all.
It is Wonder Woman.
So this is a character who was created over 75 years ago, has never gone out of publication for any significant amount of time, and is one of the most famous and loved icons of the comic book universe. And it is Wonder Woman Christmas. She wouldn't care about Christmas, but she'd be glad that we care about Christmas. Oh my god.
So just to make a point about this wonderful pop vinyl that Amy is currently opening, it comes from the DC Collector's Box, which we are soliciting of our own volition. We are not being primed to do this by anybody. But tomorrow we're going to be giving away 2 of these boxes on Twitch, I believe. So there's going to be like a thing.
This mug comes
on
from
Twitch.
that?
Not
No,
from
I mean,
that,
not from the
from that
one.
box,
This is from
but
last year's Guardians.
but
box.
there's a Wonder Woman box, and you should check it out. And we may be giving away 2 on
is
Twitch tomorrow. She's got the rope and she's got gold boots. It's really
Would it be possible to love Amy anymore than right now?
no, not really.
That, and
Oh, look,
by
the
the way,
box also came with this.
Oh, she got a teeny tiny Wonder Woman too, a pocket Wonder Woman for on the go.
It's cuter than you can imagine.
It's
like
really cute. It looks like Tiny Potato in cosplay.
it does. It is Tiny Potato cosplaying as Wonder Woman. You can do the thing. Wonder Woman believes in you.
the chat is in love with you also. So
It's just, I'm so excited. Reviews for this movie are good, but I have long held the policy that, like, it'll be great if it's good. I just need it to exist. But apparently, I'm going to get all my dreams because the movie's being very well received. We'll talk about it once we all
I
had
keep
a
my
chance to see
expectations
it.
low,
It
and
is
I'm
smart,
excited to be
in
pleasantly
general,
surprised.
to keep your expectations low.
Always.
But, like,
the
Batman's
lovely
had...
says a blessing on your potato.
Yep. This is a vast thing. It's wonderful. Yeah. So
Trying to think
Batman's
of
had
potato
like
puns.
9 movies, right?
Batman.
Superman's
more
had
than 9.
like 7
About
movies.
7. Spider-Man's had.
Though I don't know if you would say the Quest for Peace counts.
It counts,
as a
man.
movie.
Look, I want the bad ones. I want the good ones.
You're
I
right.
want the whole litany.
You're
like,
right.
Batman 66 counts. I don't.
Yeah,
It's
no.
not a bad movie. I would hate for anyone to think I don't
Yeah.
love.
Look-
That may be my favorite Batman movie, but
Yeah, I share your, like, when Doctor Strange was coming out, I was just like, oh my god, the nerds really have one.
Iron Man has more movies.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
this is
Yeah,
a thing.
which is ridiculous.
which makes no.
Yeah.
Ant-Man has more movies.
Ant-Man has more movies. And I'm
And a
not trying to
sequel on
take
the way.
anything
No.
away from any of those dudes.
No.
But boy, am
It's
I
amazing.
through the roof right now.
Yeah.
Hi. welcome to
She's
the
been
Wednesday Club.
giddy.
So
all been
are you
good.
going on Thursday night?
Yeah.
Where are you going?
ArcLight, and I don't know enough about film to know exactly what this will do to my viewing experience, but I'm going to a 70mm showing.
Oh,
Whoa.
you're going. It's going to do
It's
great
going to
things
be
to
beautiful
your.
and make my eyeballs bleed, right?
Whoa, yeah.
70mm is serious.
Yeah, Brittany and I are going on Thursday night as well.
I'm not going on Thursday night for reasons.
We
I
actually,
know. I was like, you should come, and I was like, oh, I forgot
Yeah, and then you
about
felt
days.
bad, didn't you?
I
Yeah.
did. I mean, poor you. The way
don't
you
feel-
spend your
you.
I know, my
Thursdays seems
Thursdays are
really
Poor you.
miserable.
You have to go play D&D.
I have to play.
on
I have a
camera.
Dungeons and
Poor
Dragons
you.
game on Thursday.
Poor you.
I do like that you guys wore Captain America and Green Lantern to Wonder Woman Day.
Well, I don't have. That's why I texted you this morning. Like, please say you have Wonder Woman shirt because I want to have a Wonder Woman shirt. And then you were like, we don't have Wonder Woman. I was like, I'll give you $40 for it. I
honestly-
don't care, whatever.
We just don't have shirts.
The,
It's
the,
all right.
the only reason there's that great Wonder Woman denim jacket that I was looking at, except that it's like I can wear black denim, but I just can't quite
Can't wear blue, yeah.
I can't pull off a blue denim jacket, but I love.
Brittany-
I think it's great though. I'm a big fan of that design.
My wife is friends with the dude who.
Oh yeah, I
designed
met
that.
him at a
Yeah,
con.
Tony, I think.
Yeah,
is
he's
his
got
name.
a Flash hoodie that I can now purchase without people looking at me funny.
Can I, by the way, also just shout out, what is this beautiful?
Yeah, what is
Oh,
that thing?
well, we talked about it on Facebook Live, but Brittany's mom, my mother-in-law, gave that to my lovely wife because she's like, Brittany loves Squirrel Girl, and that's one of her favorite pieces of Squirrel Girl art, so she got it for her, but Brittany doesn't drink coffee. So I asked Brittany, I was like, hey, may I steal this mug? And she's like, I was actually going to offer it to you, and
It's a spectacular mug.
I
Yeah,
thought...
it is.
It's just great.
My thought is that can be like sort of the behind-the-counter conch. Whoever's behind the counter gets to use the Squirrel Girl mug.
I'm
but-
excited by that thought.
In favor.
Yeah. So anyway, that's thanks to my lovely mother-in-law and my very charitable and understanding wife.
So we have a topic this week.
So
what
we
was
do.
it?
We have a topic this week. And
Doctor
it is,
Strange. We're talking Doctor Strange. It's gonna be amazing. Sorry.
It's too easy right now. I know.
No, I'm trying to find.
You are a Squirrel Girl
I'm
right
so
now.
much like it,
No, you are me when I got to talk about Doctor
Yeah.
Strange like 3 or 4 weeks into our show. I was like, there's so much to say.
You know what? Actually, this was me waiting in line to see Batman.
in
Like,
'89.
yeah, back in '89, of like they finally did it. Superheroes are finally happening. But it was just like that was not even Batman. That was just we got a super like I was a tiny baby when Superman came out.
Yeah.
And now it's starting, and it's the gravy train is going, and it's never gonna stop. And it's
then the
never
90s
stopped.
hit.
well, it turned out there were some interruptions, but
There were some interruptions, but we
But
all
it's
got
been going
together.
pretty steady since the X-Men in 2000.
Are you telling me
some
not to hold my breath after this moment of glory because
Oh
it could
God,
be another
no!
25 years until
It's
we get
not going to
something.
be 25 years. We're gonna get many
Hey,
more.
by like so since I get to work at like Screen Junkies and have coordinate like get to hang around all those people, they all saw Wonder Woman
And
2 or 3 weeks ago, and people before that had been seeing it for like a month. So like for 2 months now, people have been seeing the movie. Everyone I've talked to has seen the movie is like, it's good.
And if we know one thing
It's
about
very
Warner
good.
Brothers, they are desperate to please. So they finally made something that it seems like almost everybody likes.
Very good things from people that I trust.
Yeah, even my friends, like even my friends who were like not it, are like they're the worst thing I've heard from anybody was. It wasn't the greatest movie I've ever seen, but the best I've seen in like a good year and a half too. And I'm like, okay, if that's a negative review right now, all right,
That's
I'll run
pretty
with that.
solid review.
I'll friggin' take it.
Yeah, I've heard more negative things about Lord of the Rings.
As previously mentioned, 75 years it has taken to get the most famous female superhero in the world her own feature-length live-action motion picture.
And this
in
is
theaters.
after having a TV show. It still
Yes.
took years to make it happen.
So
Bring it.
Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is
Yes.
Diana of Themyscira. I don't know how to say it. There are multiple ways.
I've always said
Themyscira.
Themyscira. Personally.
Themyscira is also known as Paradise Island. It is the home of the Amazons, an all-female group who have essentially separated from the rest of society, or what they call man's world or the patriarch's world in different versions. This happened around the time of ancient Greece, and there isn't generally much intermixture until, and this is a thing that we will be talking about a bit today in Wonder Woman, is that the nature of Paradise Island, the nature of Amazonian society, the nature of Wonder Woman's exit from the island to our world has been told and retold many, many different ways. And that is, we will argue, I think, part of what makes her who she is now. But it can be sort of confusing, especially from the outside when you say, well, what is the story? And the truth is that there have been many stories. But the essence is, the basic Wonder Woman origin is that sometime in ancient Greece, the Amazons, who are a real figure from mythology and or history, but in the comic book version, they separate off from the rest of the world. With the blessing of the gods, they sort of live immortal on their own island until a stranger crashes on their land, And it is the first man to set foot on Paradise Island in approximately 3,000 years, and his name is Steve Trevor. Now, in most accountings of this story, Wonder Woman is the sort of the only child of the Amazons. They had, just being a race of immortal warrior women, weren't having a lot of kids, except that Diana's mother, Princess Hippolyta of the Amazons, longed for a child and prayed to the Greek gods who are their patrons for a child, and so was advised by which god it was depends on your telling, but HERA or Athena or Artemis.
Sometimes it's Queen Hippolyta sometimes too.
To do what?
Princess or Queen? I think it was Queen.
Queen. What did I say?
Princess.
Pretend I said Queen.
Queen. Sorry.
Yeah,
Carry on.
thank you.
Yeah. No. It's just right.
Yes, Queen Hippolyta of the Amazons has prayed to the gods longing for a child, and they encourage her to shape some clay into the image of a child, and they imbue it with life. There are some particularly cool explanations for this. George Perez's, that we'll get to later, is a particularly neat, like where that child comes from story. But she becomes the only child of the Amazons. She becomes their princess as daughter of the queen. They raise her. She becomes one of the finest of their warriors. They are all cool with living by themselves until a plane, which should not be able to reach this mystically hidden island, Paradise Island, crashes on their shores. And this is the part that often goes differently in different tellings. But the essence is that while most of the Amazons say, like, get the intruder off our island, or we will lose our powers if we allow him on the island, or we just don't want him here because we don't like or trust men, that was the whole point, Diana sees this, like, plane crash victim and is like, this guy needs help. Once again, I'm trying not to divert into the multiple versions. I'm committing to one version.
You're solid.
So Steve Trevor he was usually an American pilot of some kind. Wonder Woman started not as a period piece, but as contemporary stories, but it was in 1941.
75 years.
75 years. Yeah, let's just keep saying that every few minutes. 75 years, guys. Steve Trevor, an American pilot, has crashed on the shores, and they essentially take him in largely through the intercession of Diana, who says we should show this guy mercy, we should heal him, and then eventually someone should take him back to the outside world. And here's where the sort of twin parts of her origin come together. Because they're sort of she leaves because a man has arrived on the island and sort of made them aware of the outside world, but also usually because what comes with him is the knowledge that the world is engulfed by war. And this is one of the great central contradictions of Wonder Woman, is that she is a warrior for peace. She fights against the concept of war in a lot of incarnations. And so essentially, this sheltered girl who lived a pretty nice life with her family on her island realizes that darkness is taking over the world outside and that someone should go try to help. And they say someone has to return this pilot to his land. We will have a tournament to see who will represent us and take him back to the outside world. In some versions, that person can never return. And so this is an honor, but also a kind of a tragic honor. And her mother, the queen, forbids Diana from participating in this contest, in most accountings. She does it anyway, because it's the right thing to do. She sort of thinks on it. She is strongly called to this mission of trying to do some good out in the world. She enters this contest masked. There are contests of strength and all of the typical sort of athleticism, being ancient Greek Amazons, that typifies their culture. And she emerges triumphant and pulls off her mask to reveal to her proud but heartbroken mother that she has won the honor of representing the Amazons to the outside world and returning Steve Trevor home. And so what usually follows is a tearful parting, or a lot of fighting and then a tearful parting as her mother tries to refuse to let her go. And this is a thing that I really love about the Wonder Woman mythos, is that, they've been burned. They don't trust the outside world, and they don't trust that it's going to treat her well, and they don't want to see her go through that. And she chooses to take that on, to go out into, I guess it's the X-Men in me, the world that hates and fears them, but to go out into a hostile world and try to make it better, knowing that's what you're in for. So she does. She takes Steve Trevor back, and in the original comics, hilariously identity swaps with the first person she meets who happens to look exactly like her and be named Diana Prince and work as an army nurse. So technically she infiltrates the army under an assumed identity and then roots out spies. Which is a little bit like, but you just showed how easy it is to infiltrate the army under an assumed identity, so I guess you're going to be a really good spy catcher. But that's not important. She comes here, adopts the civilian identity of Diana Prince in those versions where she has a secret identity, works with originally the World War II Army as a nurse and sort of aide to Steve Trevor. They get a sort of, like, he falls in love with Wonder Woman but isn't noticing Diana thing going on. And
Wait. So I haven't read those.
This is original.
This is
World
old.
War II
Yeah, this is
Army.
the old
I
stuff.
have them up here. Yeah.
So Steve Trevor was in love with Wonder Woman, but didn't know that Diana Prince was Wonder Woman. Is kind of a Lois Lane.
There
Yeah.
was a time where that was the thing.
For a
Yeah.
little while.
Where she's
But
like, I
he
can't
had-
compete with myself.
But he had met her on the island.
Yeah.
He's not that bright.
She wears glasses when she's a nurse.
Yeah, she's and
And pulls her hair back.
I can find pictures if you like.
No. I trust you. I just like you said that. I was like, wait.
But weirdly, they
wait,
have already set up in canon the idea that she must, like, that must be possible because she trades places with a nearly identical nurse. So there already was someone who
Who's
looked like
also
that
named
and
Diana?
was named Diana
Who's
Prince.
named Diana Prince.
Yep.
Like you do.
Okay.
Um,
You may proceed, Amy.
yeah.
You're doing very well.
Comics.
Comics
So,
and glasses. Yeah.
cut from here to lovely. Yeah. You found this. This is great. Oh yeah,
Of
she
course he
buys her
did.
credentials.
Oh man, that's exactly what the propaganda posters tell you not to do in World War II.
She says, no harm done, for I'm a trained nurse too. Just a little money and a substitution, because the nurse Diana Prince wants to marry her boyfriend who's moving out of country or something, but she doesn't want to leave her post and abandon her duty. And Wonder Woman's like, I can solve both our problems.
Oh man.
Oh my god, it's so good. I love it.
But so the basic traits, she's a highly trained and skilled warrior because she's been raised in this culture that prizes sort of the skill of battle, the athleticism and strength. She is extremely strong. In most versions, she can fly, although not all versions have that. Some versions have a kind of riding wind currents thing, and some versions have no flight at all. She is gifted with certain artifacts that are blessed by the various Greek gods or their patrons, among which is the very famous golden lasso, which originally compelled obedience, but essentially one of those things it could compel you to do was to tell the truth, and that kind of evolved into its primary thing, which is to just put the lasso around someone and they must tell you the truth. She's got nice bullet deflecting bracelets, which are gifts of the god, but also carry symbolic meaning in certain versions of the Amazon origin, because this backstory about why the Amazons decided to go live by themselves and ignore everybody else forever has a lot of different versions, some of which are more brutal than others. But the essence is that they will never be second-class citizens again. They will never submit to authority that doesn't respect them, and to remind them of that pledge, they wear bracelets that are almost like the shackles with which a real jerk named Hercules once bound them in a real bad time. So, and depending on
That
the
was
version,
the Perez.
this is kind of the Perez origin.
okay. Heracles.
And I don't know whether he invented that or just told it most prominently. This I should look into.
You mean Perez?
Yeah, did he? Is he the one?
Is he the one who started that chunk of the mythology or not?
I don't know.
This is the thing I should know.
There's 75 years worth of comics. We can only do so much.
Yeah. So that's the gist of where Wonder Woman comes from. Over the course of 75 years, she joined the superhero teams. She joined the very first superhero team, the Justice Society. She was their secretary. It was the 40s. That is what they thought membership looked like. And it was better than not being there.
True.
Honestly,
At least she
better
was
than
there.
not being there is kind of the like women in comics story.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
When you
That's
get
the
to
name of your
the
book.
Wasp,
Title.
when
That's
you
the name
get
of your book.
To Invisible Woman, when you get to like my identity, like I'm some other character.
Oh my
with
God!
she in front of it.
What you're throwing me here? Were there any other female members of the original JSA?
is a Golden Age
Black-
character.
Black
I don't know if she
Canary.
ever joined the.
Was Hot Girl on it the Golden Age?
I don't know. Is there a Golden Age incarnation of Hot Girl, or does she not show up until Silver Age?
I don't know.
And then
We
the
gotta
other
learn
one
to
that's
see
killing me
that.
is the Red Tornado. But she was later.
She was a dude in the Golden Age.
Was she a dude in the Golden Age? No, red. No, red.
No, there's
Female, my uncle.
Yes. Okay. Wait. There must have been at least.
There are a couple red tornadoes.
Yes.
It's like wow.
She may
Yeah,
have
no,
just
it's
been
just
the
Hawkman. Look at that.
first member of the first female member. I'm not sure. Others may have joined after her because I know that there's definitely history for
Not
the
a-
other Golden Age characters.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow. Wow. I hadn't really thought about that. Oh, that's nuts.
But
Dr.
interestingly,
Fate, Hourman, Spectre, Sandman, Atom, Flash, Green Lantern, and Hawkman.
Wow. Yeah. No. Okay. Wow.
they were telling stories with those female heroes. There are and I do think you're right. The Mahunkel gets in there at some point.
Yeah, I think later though.
So interestingly, Wonder Woman, because after World War II, during World War II, she was doing lots of patriotic adventures, as most people were, mostly domestic spy busting kind of stuff. And post World War II, when the superhero comics sales plummeted, there were not that many that kept going. And she was one of only a few that actually made it through continuously being published until this Silver Age revitalization, which is why she and Batman and Superman carry right over into the Justice League when that gets formed in the early 60s. And she's had an amazing history in comics ever since, but I think this might be a good time to back up to the behind the scenes.
I've been so enjoying this though, but yes. Okay.
Sorry, is there anything I've raced over too fast or that
well,
I'm going to pause for questions before we get into who created her and why?
We haven't mentioned her. She has a couple more items that she collected as she gained in power and popularity, which was ironically a jet, even though she can usually fly.
The jet shows up
jet.
weirdly early.
Yeah, it's like super early.
It's part of the
'Cause
vision
she
of the
flies
Amazons
in?
as
Yeah.
technologically advanced. I think
So it's kind of like Wakanda in that way, where it's like a secret.
I think that.
yeah, it's most
Society,
versions
yeah.
of the Amazon society are depicted as it's highly technologically advanced. They've had 3,000 years of
And cloaked,
Yeah.
Yeah,
like fully cloaked.
that they've developed some pretty sophisticated stuff. Where you get a lot of interesting artistic interpretation is people saying, well, what would that look like? Would it look like our technology? Would it look like different technology? But this comes to us from the very origins, the idea that they were a very sort of what we would consider advanced society.
Yeah, it was an invisible plane at first.
the invisible plane.
Yeah, and it was just an example of her very advanced technology. And it might be that, depending on whether she could actually fly in the originals, I've always found it valid either way, because even if I could fly, I'm not sure I would want to fly 2,000
everywhere.
miles.
Yeah, no.
Like,
Sometimes you want a jet.
but that is a
Sometimes
great
you just have to
question.
take the
I've
jet.
also always wondered if it fires invisible missiles. That's never really
Is
come
she
up that I've
invisible?
read.
Because like in that
No,
picture,
you can.
you can
I
see her.
think the idea is
If you're
that,
in there.
you can't see her in there, but
'Cause
comic
it's-
book illustration wise,
It's weird.
there's no point in drawing an empty sky and saying this is invisible Wonder Woman in an
But you can
invisible
do the
plane.
little white outlines. Like that's
But
what, that's
colors
what,
are
It
pretty.
would come. It would.
They
it would
are
she
pretty,
would
but like
vanish
one of
in
the things
plane.
that's always confused me is like, well, look at that lady who's sitting and flying through the sky, like
that.
it's just
that.
like you just see
What if
someone just
there's-
going.
Well, it's like one of those things like the Fantastic Four or Spider-Man costumes being blue, even though they were supposed to be black, because black was
Black
not
was
a
hard
good
to-
cover. It was
Yeah.
a color they would use blue to try and highlight shading on black
Yeah.
clothing. They finally just gave up and were like, all right, they're blue.
Screw it, they're blue.
They're blue. I give up. Or that the Hulk is the color he is because of a coloring error.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be gray. Was it gray? Yeah.
He
Gray.
started off gray, but then gray was hard to manufacture.
Yeah, they were
so
having
made him
issues
green.
with it,
Yeah.
and he turned green.
I think she gets flight later on. I think she has
or
the
maybe
plane
the other.
first.
I'm gonna hear about that.
All right, Miss Sunflower 94 says, question for Amy: who was your first female superhero?
Oh, that's right.
My first female superhero.
Mine was Rogan Jean Grey. Whose was yours?
Mine was Spider Woman out of a Viewmaster. I had a Viewmaster, and she was
Interesting.
one of the little like 3D pictures. Was her flying with the weird armpit thing?
Aw. It was probably the Women of the X-Men animated series. But it's one of those things where reruns of the Wonder Woman television show are just cultural osmosis, so I can't pin down
Sure.
what age I encountered that at.
Sure.
So I don't know which of those came
I love
first.
the phrase cultural osmosis.
Yeah,
it's
that
such
is
a
a
true.
good-
There's
yeah.
just things that we just inherently
just
know
know.
just by being here.
So Storm or Wonder Woman, I don't know.
I was also going to say Wonder Woman occasionally has a sword, a shield, and armor is also come up.
Those are interesting acquisitions over time, partly because essentially one of the cool things that giving her this Greek setting lets writers do is draw on sort of other, like, if it looks appropriate for ancient Greece, you can find a way to work it into your story, or you can draw inspiration for bad guys and story events from mythology, because it doesn't hew closely to particular versions of mythology, but it draws on lots of them for inspiration.
So
love that sword and
let me. I know we're probably going to spend the rest of the episode talking more or less around this question.
Sure.
But it is. Triamus says, if I've never read any Wonder Woman at all, where should I start? Soap Lady 7 says, best storyline for a new reader. Parentheses, Wonder Woman taught me kindness is strength and femininity is not weak. So storylines, where do we start?
I love it.
That's a tough question.
Comment is great. We will get into some of that.
75 years.
75 years, guys. So there are... I will say...
Oh, you're such a
this last year or two has been this beautiful time that I have never seen in my life of... Not that I'm 75 years old, but... I've never seen so much good stuff coming out that gives you real options about Wonder Woman. Usually it's like, 2 things are in print right now, just read those. So I'm going to say right now, I would recommend Wonder Woman Year 1. This is going to, there's a caveat for getting a hold of this. This is a Wonder Woman trade paperback collecting a short storyline in the current Wonder Woman comics. It is numbered 2 on the spine. Do not let that confuse you. There is
Why is it?
Okay, actually, genuinely, why is it number 2? Is there another year 1 for a different character?
No, this is as of last summer. What was last year? 2016?
Yes, 2016. We've all tried to erase that year from our memories.
Last year, when they started a bunch of the DC comics over with number 1s, they switched a lot of them to a twice-a-month schedule. Which means that the books are coming out very quickly, which is nice. And in some cases, it means you just have artists on in little chunks. But the author, returning champion of Wonder Woman, Greg Rucka, came back to write the new Wonder Woman comics. And rather than tasking his artists to double up every month or work in short bursts, he alternated.
Oh, clever.
He decided basically odd-numbered issues will follow a present-day story, and even-numbered issues will follow a flashback story.
Clever.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
Issue 1 was the new current-day status quo Wonder Woman, and Issue 2 was the beginning of a flashback story called Year 1. Now, rather than collect them in chunks where the story alternates in between chapters, they've elected to separate those chunks out. So Volume 1 was the first 6 odd numbers. So the trade paperback Volume 1 of this particular run was the first 6 odd numbers, and the trade paperback Volume 2 collects a complete story of the Year 1 retelling of her origin that they did, which happened to come out in alternating issues of the book. Very sorry, I know that it's been tripping a lot of people up, but it looks like this. It is by Greg Rucka. It is illustrated by Nicola Scott with Romulo Fajardo Jr. And it puts her origin in the modern day, but it's frigging gorgeous. Nicola Scott is one of my favorite artists, and I've never seen her do work better than this. She's just like leveling up like crazy.
Ah, there we go.
She's
the line work is so clean.
It's so great.
So well composed.
Yes, spoilers for Wonder Woman being a cool hero, I guess. But
75 years.
Like this book it gets through the origin in those 6 issues in a really nice way. Let me look for this moment. Oh,
I'm so sad I missed your Doctor Strange episode. I'm looking forward
our
to
gift to the
my
world,
Goober
our
episode.
champion. More spoilers from Wonder Woman Year 1.
Oh, gorgeous.
And there's Tearful Mom on the other side there. Hippolyta. Yep, okay. So that's one that I recommend as a jumping in point right now, because it just retells her origin in a nice, beautiful way.
And the rebirth the Volume 1 rebirth.
That's not a starting point though. I don't know. Like I feel like this is a better.
Like
I don't know if it's a
interesting
starting
starting
point, but it
because
is
the-
great.
It is
Good.
great.
I'm glad.
It's
really
great.
It by its very nature though, it starts very much with this is all wrong, and it's important to know what's all wrong before you're.
That's very true. I am such a sucker for like long game, like 75 year. Like I'm such a sucker for stuff that's like we're resetting this, we're acknowledging all the mistakes that have come, and we're wrapping it all up in a tiny little bow. Like I love that. So like them addressing the New 52 origin, Crisis, all that stuff. Like I'm like, oh, you're
So
doing
a thing that
it.
Greg Rucka
Yay.
has done in the 2016 run of comics is essentially we've briefly acknowledged that there are contradictions and differences in the way Wonder Woman has been presented over time. And the truth is that some of these differences are severe. She's not always made of clay. That was a thing in about 2012. And there's these sort of widely varying versions of her. And Greg Rucka decided when he came back on the title to basically make a storyline about her confronting that. Being like, I feel like there's a million different versions of me. What could be causing that? And sort of turn that context into story stuff.
Yeah.
Which we love.
Which I
'Cause we're
am
continuity.
such
I have
a sucker for.
I have interesting theories on why this is, and we're not quite at the point in the
Okay.
conversation where we can have them yet, but we're getting there.
I
You're
think
moving
that
at a good pace.
one of two things is next. Either we're going to talk about the creator, or I'm going to briefly just show like flashback from where we are today by showing you each of these until we get back to the beginning.
Let's do a little flashback, and then once we get back to the beginning, then we'll talk about the creator, because that's
Great.
fascinating, and you can't talk about why there are 100 different versions of Wonder Woman until you know how she started, because then it makes sense. It doesn't make sense until you know how it happened.
Although I will say that the absolutely golden quote that is widely shared as it should be, William Moulton Marston, who created Wonder Woman, said Wonder Woman is propaganda for the new type of woman who I believe should rule the world.
Wow.
This was not an accident. Strong woman in 1941.
So he was saying futurist female back then.
Yeah, he
Oh,
was.
yes.
He would have been all about that phrase. And for the record, I take that ruling the world thing as hyperbole. He and I might differ on that. But it's one of my favorite quotes because it's just like, she's not an accident, guys.
He had a touch of Carnival Barker in him. Like,
He
let's
did.
be fair.
So let's
there was a
roll
bit of
back the
hyperbole in that boy.
clock from right here. And this was just, I thought this would be a fun exercise. I grabbed a sampling. These are more covers from this current run because I love them so much.
Oh God, they're. Slow down.
We'll
Go back and forth. Oh, no, you're gonna load them
So
up. Okay.
what
yeah.
I'm going to do now
That's right.
is sort of peel back the clock.
This is so amazing.
Based on a random selection of Wonder Womans that I borrowed from the shop and will
I
bring
love
back.
that cover. Are you really gonna bring them back, or are they just gonna go to my house? That's a.
We can fight.
These are so
Okay.
pretty, guys. Oh God.
So come with me in my Wayback Machine. There are some
let's
things
just go-
missing
let's
from
just
that
go
because
for the
these
close-up
traits
and
should
hold
be
there.
in there. You ready?
Yeah. All right.
Chief Doom is the best.
All right. Current run, not in order because I'm not bothering with it. What's a better way to spotlight these?
I got
Okay. They're nearly all in frame. All right. This is 2016 and 2017. That one's out of order. Sorry. There's chunks missing from this chronology, but we're heading
Interesting
backwards
pull on the
in
bracelets.
time.
Okay, things are getting weird. Things are okay.
Lovely
Interesting.
Adam Hughes period. This was a thing that happened.
Yeah, denim happened.
Brian Boland is the best.
Very much my childhood there.
This is considered one of the all-time classic runs. George Perez. We will talk about that in a bit. Peeling back through to just before that sort of reboot, when it was a very classic style.
Huntress used to be a backfiller for the book too. Yeah.
They got out of order. Did they? No, they didn't. Good. Okay. Superheroine number 1 says Wonder Woman 213. And then we get back to one of the weird periods where they took away her costumes and she ran around in a white pantsuit doing martial arts.
The white pantsuit was fascinating. That almost looks like a Catwoman costume.
And then back to
One of my favorites.
one of the all-time classic What Is Going On Here Wonder Woman covers. The entire Wonder Woman family.
Looks like the Prince of Atlantis from The Tick.
And we're back to
I never
World
make you
War
laugh.
II.
Oh.
So important chunks are missing from that timeline, but this is the 75 years, y'all.
75 years.
Of Wonder Woman in her various.
I've said it
patriotic
before.
images.
Bring me some of that. I want to
I've
go
said it
through
before,
some of
but
that.
I'll say it again. I love that I get to do this show because I feel like
It's
I'm
so
like,
great, isn't it?
It's like for me, it very much is like I'm a fan of the Wednesday Club, and I'm like I get to sit at the table with you guys. Like I'm not like a host. I'm a fan of you guys. Like I always learn something. I love you guys.
Like comics. It's real good.
No, I know,
I
but
know.
it's like I always get to learn something.
I feel
It's
bad.
so much
It's
fun.
also we do what we can.
All right, so there's a couple people saying this, but Japan Rose says I'm so confused by comic creators now.
By comic creators.
So I'm taking that as like I want to know who the creator is.
Okay.
Well, we can have
I
that.
believe we have reached 1941 in our rollback.
Just so you know, superhero characters like for Marvel and DC have ownership, and they have creators and ownership. A lot of people have written this character.
Yeah.
Some well,
75 years.
75 years. Some very well. Some questionably well, depending on your point of view. And there's an argument to be made that, like, especially when the creator kind of taps into something so primal, and this is a primal character. This is one of those characters that it's hard to imagine a world where this doesn't exist. And if it didn't, we would have to invent it. Once these characters exist, there's kind of this essential DNA that exists. And you can prod at it, and you can poke at it, and you can twist it, and do all sorts of things with these characters. But there is the exercise we used to do when I was taking some theory classes was to describe a car. Like, if you're thinking about a car, and you imagine a car, and you say, well, a car is like has 4 doors, 4 wheels, and a windshield, and you drive it around. Like, well, if it had 2 doors, is it still a car? Well, yeah. Well, if I removed all the wheels, it can't drive around anymore, and it has no wheels, but is it still a car? Well, yeah. Well, if I remove the windshield, and all the doors are taken off, and there's no wheels and an engine, is it still a car? Yeah. Well, if it's just the 4 wheels, is it a car? No.
Yeah, like it. Yeah, in my philosophy
like the-
class, we had a question of like
The
if
vote question?
no, we had the bridge question, which is if you've got a stone bridge and it's been there since the Renaissance. In World War II, they blow it up, and then they put the bridge back together with every stone into place where it initially was. It would be a miracle to do it, but would it be the same bridge?
That's a very good
That's
version.
very close to the
it's-
boat one. The boat one is if you replace every piece of wood on a boat, is it the same boat?
Yeah, exactly.
And this is a philosophical question that we
I mean, we're
play
getting into
with.
metaphysics now.
We are getting into and there's plenty of metaphysics. Metaphysics and comics go hand in hand, and especially with Wonder Woman. But with these characters that are shared by so many different writers and creators, there is that notion of, is it still a boat? And sometimes it's not a boat, and sometimes it is. And that's kind of the conversation we have when someone says that wasn't a Superman story, even though Superman's in it. Is like it had all the parts, but they didn't build the boat
It didn't
right.
feel like Superman.
Yeah, they like this. There were a couple stones out of place, and so Wonder Woman has been built and rebuilt a lot. But there is always that creator of that DNA there's the designer of that bridge in the beginning, and that's where I want to get to, so that people who are confused understand that these characters are handled. 75 years.
Absolutely.
75 years.
75 years.
I mean, there's an element for like you deconstruct the hero to what is the core element of that hero, and then how can I put my own voice on it and still have it be the hero without completely making it a new boat or a new bridge. So
So
the
genetics.
creator of Wonder Woman, and there's probably a lot of influence from the artist of the early issues, which was Harry G. Peter. But the primary creator of Wonder Woman is a man named William Moulton Marston, and he's a real interesting dude. The more you learn about this guy, the more interesting he gets. But among other things, he was a psychologist and academic. There's a wonderful cartoon going around right now by Lucy Bellwood and another woman whose name I have forgotten. It is at The Nib, and it is a brief look through the history of Wonder Woman. So I highly recommend it because it's just a wonderful little cartoon that goes through a ton of the history.
is that on YouTube?
No, it's
literally a comic, but it's on the website The Nib.
Oh, okay.
Which
It's a
has been
webcomic.
hosting really excellent comics work, by the way.
Yeah.
And I believe pays their creators, so
So
Good job, the nib.
We recommend checking it out. It's a great little primer.
Also, Lucy Bellwood is one of my faves, so she's great. But it goes into a bit the various sort of accomplishments and question marks around William Moulton Marston. Part of his psychological research would actually get used eventually in the detection of in the development of what we now know as the lie detector test. Which questions of the scientific usefulness of the lie detector test aside, is an awfully poetic legacy for the guy who also created Wonder Woman, who...
Lariat of Truth.
Yeah, would eventually wield the Lariat of Truth. It's just great. He and as the cartoon points out, he also literally wrote a book called Emotions of Normal People.
Yes.
So the creation of Wonder Woman kind of came out of the publishers were sort of like, was it his idea or was it their idea? I feel like they came,
I think it was his idea. I
Did
think
he
they
pitch
wanted
them on
something
it,
new
or-
and he pitched. Yeah. I could be wrong on that, but if I recall, it was he walked up to them with something.
essentially this is going to be sort of hot water territory for some folks, but it really does go without saying. Wonder Woman is a feminist character. You may like.
I need a little gasp bubble. Yeah.
There are multiple versions of feminism, and there's a lot of room for folks who have criticism of the character and what she represents. And I think those are really interesting and productive discussions to have. But it is without doubt that she was intended as a statement, because this is 1941. She was a statement that women can be strong. That's like...
I'm trying to remember the name of the feminist magazine from the 60s at their first issue.
Ms. Magazine.
Magazine,
When Gloria
thank you.
Steinem started,
Gloria Steinem's magazine.
famous feminist magazine. I think it was Ms.
I think so.
In early 70s, I'm gonna say. They made their very first cover girl. Not cover girl, really. Their very first cover image is Wonder Woman for president, and she's like giant and she's stepping on things. It's great. I should have loaded up.
It's
because I don't have a copy of
It's a
that.
weird power that she has, that she can grow to enormous size and crush.
No, that's one of her bad guys. That's gigantic.
And Elastigirl.
So.
Oh,
Wait.
No,
Can she?
the one from Doom Patrol. That's one from
I don't know. I don't
she
know
get
Doom Patrol.
real
She
big?
got,
How
she
big?
got real big. I don't remember how big.
Real big.
Oh, yeah.
So, there we go.
Yay.
Thank you. Wonder Woman for president.
It looks like she's tripping.
Peace and Justice in 72. Well, those are not my favorite boots, but yes.
It looks like she's tripping and trying to catch her balance.
And
Yep.
she's saving. What is she holding on her tray there? I can't quite tell.
I think she's
Wow, are we
carrying-
really?
She is literally like
She's
carrying
carrying a
buildings
city,
to
yeah.
safety, or moving, like somehow safeguarding people's lives or livelihoods there.
That's
So
an
maybe she's
interesting
not
use
smashing
of
things.
the lariat.
Yeah.
It's like a serving tray of buildings.
Yeah. So okay.
Jodie Hauser says, "Enhance,
Yeah.
enhance."
Hi, Jody.
Wonder Woman got a lot of the sort of what we would really call, because it's 1941, it's sort of proto-feminist. It's between, like, when you talk about feminism as a movement, you tend to divide it into waves. And this is obviously before, oh God, I'm blanking. Second wave feminism is 60s, first wave feminism is Susan B. Anthony, or
Yes.
third wave feminism is like 80s and 90s?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying yes on that one. My grandmother is scolding me from the heavens. Just God.
But you tend to sort of generationally the concerns that are more or less important within the movement. And the definition we're working with, I'm just gonna lay it all out there, guys. The definition we're working with for feminism is the radical notion that women have equal rights. That's a jokey answer, but it's also essentially the truth. And this is where we get back into this, like, 75 years.
75.
Many things about Wonder Woman come from a time where the struggle for women's suffrage was recent living memory. The struggle for universal suffrage would not be concluded until well after she was created, as various other bars, like, is still being fought today. Shout out to the Supreme Court for messing with my home state of North Carolina and fixing our gerrymandering problems. That's okay. That was a diversion, but it's also important because part of why I love Wonder Woman is that these struggles are ongoing. These problems have not been solved. She exists in part to address an imbalance which is still with us. So she hasn't finished her mission yet. We can't let her go home.
More creator talk.
Yeah. Okay.
Keep going.
Thanks, guys.
Getting you back on track.
I'm sorry. The more I care about something, the less I can talk coherently about it, apparently.
I'm so entertained.
Yeah.
So
God.
entertained.
You see
right
our
now.
faces, and we're not interrupting because we're enraptured by
No,
what you're saying.
this is fabulous.
Can we have another episode where I let you guys talk more? Okay.
Oh, yeah, no, we're well, I'll have one all of my split, but we're gonna
Good.
all be annoying next week. It's gonna be
Excellent.
great.
Yeah, we'll all be annoyed.
I was gonna say Young Justice and not Young Justice, Young Avengers is just gonna
Spoilers
be
for next week.
Young Avengers next week. Oh no, I've been looking forward to this all week. I'm so excited.
DeLovely says, Amy, you're doing well. You're coherent. It's good.
You're very good.
So,
Okay.
Keep
William
going.
Moulton Marston.
Everyone's saying, keep going. You're good. You're fabulous. You're wonderful and lovely, and everyone loves you.
William Moulton Marston. He also had
Non-traditional.
Yes, I was
There you go.
I was wondering whether we should bring up his sort of he had a side to a sort of get rich quickie scheme side to him that is not important. He's got a showmanship to him that
a
helps
bit of a
with
carnival
putting
barker?
this. Yeah,
He
bit of a
had
carnival
a
barker.
touch of carnival barker.
But he also had what, especially this is 1941, extremely progressive ideas about a lot of things, and some of that extended to his home life. And here's the big giant caveat: none of us is the people in question. None of us was there, but we're repeating what we understand to be sort of their situation. William Moulton Marston was in a polyamorous family. He was married to two women who, as far as we can tell, were married to each other. And it was not like dude with two girlfriends. It was three people in a relationship, raising and having children, and together. One of his partners was named Elizabeth, I think, Holloway. And the other one was named Olive.
I can look all of this up.
I should have written it down. But essentially, while their arrangement was they obviously didn't do a lot of public commenting on this arrangement because in 1941 that would be a good way to never get a job again.
Arrangements by their very nature back then were not publicly commented on. So.
Yeah. But this was an interesting thing that influenced his thought and his life were entwined in terms of that he was a guy who did not accept all of the social rules as written. And in a lot of ways, he had a vision that I really appreciate, a vision of, the new woman who would come to rule the world, who was, not allowed to be strong. And significantly, one thing that this is a battle that will be fought with Wonder Woman and other characters over time, but it was sort of a radical idea, at the time, that she could be strong and beautiful at the same time, and those values didn't have to be in contradiction. Now, we also, over time, we have to fight the fight of, it's okay not to be beautiful, and also beauty comes in many forms. We have to do all three of those at the same time, which is very complicated. But he put a lot of his personal radical politics into the creation of this character, who, while she didn't run around telling people these sort of, she didn't, it was in her actions more than her words that his feminist philosophy comes through. It's her existence. She's not necessarily running around trying to preach the non-existent second wave feminism to every woman she meets, but she unconsciously treats everyone with respect and believes that women deserve more respect than they're given in society. And that is with her from the outset.
Two things.
Sorry,
to
guys.
go along with that. No. To go
You're
along
good.
with that, one of the things that I learned when I was in seminary was it's better to, forgive me for being preachy and religious and everything, but it's better to live like Jesus than to talk about him. And I think it's kind of what Wonder Woman does, where she's like, no, this is just who I am. This is what I do. I don't need to tell you these things because if I just preach it to you, then I'm self-righteous. It's better for you to see my example and to choose to also live that way, right?
Proselytize was the word I was searching for.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because this is an area where different depictions of her differ, and this is what we were getting into, which is the idea that Wonder Woman is different for different times as the times call for different versions of her. Which is to say, there are times
reflective character.
where what we really need is someone to sort of clearly articulate the principles of equality in a way that we can all latch onto and learn from. And they're like, that's part of, especially in some origins, her explicit mission is to carry the message of peace and equality to the world, to literally explain these things and live them by her example.
There was a whole chunk where she worked for the UN, if I recall.
She has often been an ambassador from Themyscira, which is sort of solidifies her kind of outsider status, but the way that she has carried to our world these ideals and wants to explain and impart them to folks.
I'm a big fan of the classic Wonder, like the stories that I know very well of Wonder Woman. I'm a big fan of the classic Wonder Woman, and one of the things that I found fascinating was the reflection of these two women in this character. Because as much as he's credited, Elizabeth and Olive are definitely in that book. Like you feel. The more I learned about them when I was younger and got fascinated by why there's this one female character amongst the pantheon of male characters, that really sprouted organically. They all did organically. That's the interesting thing. I actually think it's a big problem they're having with the movies in the DC universe is that none of this was planned. Mm-hmm. Marvel was a bit of a plan. There were people making strategic decisions for where to go next. DC just sort of happened like a. DC is a wildflower garden behind a warehouse. It just sort of happened, and everything came together beautifully in this really interesting way. But there was no one mind behind. There was no Stan Lee guiding or even having any notion, be it good or bad. This just was what happened organically when all of these characters were left unattended after the ravages of the Comics Code, and. Wonder Woman is definitely one of the most amorphous, is the ones that has had to or positively shift so much with the time period. But the voices of the voices of the creator are so strong, and both the women are very interesting. Although we know more about do we know more about?
They are Elizabeth Holloway Marston and Olive Byrne.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm looking at the Wikipedia here. And it references a Smithsonian article on it saying that because of the unusual relationship situation and living arrangements, anyone who asked about the two women was told that Olive was Elizabeth's widowed sister. And Elizabeth, both women had children from Mr. William. Olive had two sons, one named Byrne and one named Doug.
Well, and Elizabeth was a lawyer as well. I mean, she was a fascinating. They're both fascinating people who were living.
Like at one point, Olive wrote a profile of their family as if she was visiting. But it's sort of this is what it would take if you had a family that unconventional. Like you can't just walk around explaining your business in 1941.
And they were unusual women for 1941. They were very independent. They were doing a lot of really interesting work. Highly educated.
Elizabeth helped create the lie detector test.
Yeah.
Nice. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. She's credited as helping in the development of systolic blood pressure tests used to detect deception.
Nice.
Yeah, they were. This was a set of three very interesting people who put this together. Three people who kept each other entertained through decades of life and otherwise, which is impressive.
Oh, and after Marston passed away relatively young, towards the end of the 1940s, as far as I know, the two women lived together for the rest of their lives.
Yes, yeah, that is also true from what I remember. One of the interesting things also that one of the things that happened that I found in the original Wonder Woman that was really interesting was they also had a lot of notions of feminine sexuality and sexual politics were discussed and brought forth both in the text and metaphorically in the binding metaphor with the cuffs and the way that would often get resolved. There they all are. That was a good photo. I like that photo. And that was one of those things that in order to survive the comic code just got squashed very, very hard.
So
very
you
quickly.
will notice it can get a bit funny sometimes, but a lot of the old Wonder Woman covers feature repeated scenes of bondage, and sort of this was related to the idea of loving submission, which will come and go from the mythology depending on who's writing and what sort of they're important. But it was part of the way Marston saw the world, and this was
and also the notion of the psychological patriarchy and
Yes, and
using
this-
that. Yeah, that was. what I was
I'm
trying
really
to
glad
throw.
that this has been a thing that people have drawn out specifically. The idea of Wonder Woman like tied up, while it was in part sort of like a part of a view of sexuality that he had, it also had really important political dimensions. The idea of women in chains and women breaking chains was a huge part of the imagery of the early 20th century suffrage and women's rights movements. So protesters, women chained themselves to the gate in front of the White House at one point. Images of suffragettes breaking chains, that was sort of the dominant imagery of this struggle for political and social equality. And so to see Wonder Woman repeatedly bound and break those chains and break those bounds was deliberate political imagery in those stories. Even whether or not she said, I'm throwing off the shackles of man's world, we all knew that was what was happening.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of those metaphors had to get squashed when the comic code came around. The comic code made everybody a little weird.
This was in the 1950s. There was
We've talked about the comic code before, but we should
have.
probably...
Part of the Wonder Woman came in for a lot of criticism by there was a moral panic in post World War II in American society that you're all probably familiar with because this is history.
And we covered it.
Yeah.
Covered it.
They got really worried about juvenile delinquency and what was making kids bad, and one of the things that came in for easy criticism.
Denim. Oh, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman. Sorry. Carry on.
And they would be united in danger years later. He's pointing at one of the terrible denim jacket
Sorry,
outfit.
carry on.
It's kind of cool looking, but terrible.
That's just-
So one of the things that came in for criticism was the corrupting influence of comic books and the sort of these potentially sexualized themes in Wonder Woman, as well as the basic feminist, like she's a big, strong, liberated woman, like that came in for criticism, and the possibility of implied homosexuality, which. We can sort of argue how much of that was designed into, like, whether Wonder Woman started out as a queer character. She obviously was created by someone with some unconventional, like, understandings of sexuality, which I think is fantastic.
I think they're too smart not to have noticed. I think they kept it quiet, but I think they were these are very smart people who wrote this character.
And it is now part of canon. Like, different creators have handled it differently, but Greg Rucka went on record last year as sort of saying, look, she comes from an island of all women. They are probably exploring different versions of sexuality because why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Like, that's how humans
Like,
work.
to not
Like-
do that is to deny their sexuality completely.
And, or to pretend that there just happened to not be any people with any lesbian impulses on
I
that
go to
island, which
Hawaii,
is
and
bizarre.
with 3 weeks on an island, and I start getting a little weird. I can't imagine what 1,000 years on an island would be like. You start to make all sorts of questions coming to you.
And it's not
to
an
make a joke, but
implication
there we
that
are.
like that
too
that
easy.
straight people are magically converted by other things, but that human sexuality is a spectrum, and that like it'd be an extraordinary coincidence if it were an entire island of completely straight women. I think that would be pretty unrealistic.
Very, very, very quiet. Very quiet.
So yeah, that's it's now part of canon that she had prior relationships and is canonically queer, to use a word which is contested but a pretty valuable part of canon history.
So there's a shift in culture. There's a shift where we have to change the character, where the character has to sort of survive. And and Superman and Batman had this too, where they had to survive the crush of the comic code authorities.
They
Superman
did.
Batman got particularly weird.
This
but-
is where we've arrived at.
Yeah, thank
like,
you.
Just you know, and whatever superhero stories make sense. She's far from the only person who married someone crazy in their storylines. This was like a really regular thing. Or you're fighting sea monsters, or in this one she's fighting Angleman, the Mouse Man.
Hey,
And-
Angleman and Mouseman. We had a conversation yesterday.
I brought it
Angleman and
actually.
Mouseman. Oh,
This
thank
was
you.
part of the 75 years of Wonder Woman is this sort of question of like who's her rogues gallery. They're not as well known as Batman's rogues gallery.
We've got a lot of people asking about villains.
Okay.
I was waiting to throw that in until we got there, but it sounds like we're getting there.
Nice. Well, a lot of the most well-known ones now, and this is unfortunately just going to further confuse the issue, because what I thought was so funny is that this is an issue from just before the George Perez run in the mid-'80s, which really is one of the high water marks for Wonder Woman writing in her history. So I grabbed a random dollar book from my store to sort of be like, what was it like just before that happened? And I was trying to, there's a letters column in here, one hilarious part of which is that they are reassuring people that they are done with that whole white pantsuit thing. literally the letters column ends with them saying, "One more time, this isn't the new Wonder Woman. We've had enough of those. She hasn't changed. She's still the beautiful, graceful Amazon from a fabled island. She's been done well, very well, and okay. Join us with the fabulous daughter of Aphrodite. Let's take her to her proper heights, way up there beyond the sky. Further than that." Which is beautiful, except, of course, they would reboot her 2 years later.
Of course.
So somebody asked a bunch of questions about Wonder Woman in this letters column, and they listed her, like, her most well-known opponents now are Cheetah. I'm
a big fan of.
An anthropologist who makes a very bad bargain with a god.
Barbara
Minerva.
Yeah, Barbara Minerva.
Who has recently been sort of revamped by Greg Rucka in Now I Love Her.
Yeah.
I was always a bit
great
of a
character
fan, but
now,
boy,
yeah.
they've I mean, like, I was always a fan, but they've really they brought out my favorite aspects and really turned them up to 11.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting, like, she shares sort of this. Well, okay.
She's
Guys, this is so
She's
hard.
an Indiana Jones that went wrong.
She's an Indiana Jones that went wrong. In some versions, it's just that she, like, wants to steal the shiny artifacts of history, and in other versions, it's that she's sort of really twistedly fallen into this, like, her life's work and meaning have changed by the discovery that godhood is real, and she makes, like... Oh, God. The part in Rebirth where the watch is broken, like, did it break your heart into a million pieces?
Oh, that was so heavy.
It was, okay. Yeah.
And so
That is a version of Cheetah.
that is a version of Cheetah. That is something that just happened. Go to a Rebirth, one of the Rebirth if we've got. But if you want to, one of my the Superman American Alien book, which I'm a big fan of and I love. It's a whole bunch of single issues of Superman. The third issue is his 21st birthday, and Clark Kent meets Barbara Minerva at a party on a boat, and they hook up before she becomes Cheetah.
I haven't read that one.
Oh my god,
And
that's
it's
awesome.
And it's such an interesting insight into her character. Like, it's such an interesting take on her character of this just bright, fun, interesting woman that's just everything terrible is going to happen to. And it's just like, it's such this terrible view of, like, nothing is going to work out. There we go.
Drawn version of her in Rebirth.
God, that's just wonderful.
Having a troubling team up. Oh God, I forgot how good this
Poor
is.
Barbara's been like so much of Wonder Woman has been kicked up and down the staircase.
Oh yeah. So nowadays we would say her most well-known villains. A lot of them. So this one goes back to the very beginning. We're gonna take some more detours. I'm so sorry.
No,
guys. Because the other thing we haven't really gotten into is that, like, Wonder Woman's primary battles relate to who her primary opponents are. And that, like, I have a thing that I like to distill it to, which is that Batman fights crime, Superman fights evil, Wonder Woman fights injustice. And that's a thing that I really love about, like, if I'm going down to what do I think is the DNA of the character, I think that always has to be there. But one of the forms of that is basically man's inhumanity to man, as symbolized most potently by war. So she literally fights the god of war, because when you're a Greek mythological figure, you can do things like that.
There's a personification that it exists.
So she literally fights war.
Yeah. She fights Mars or Ares, depending on who's writing it at the time. They use the Greek or Roman names. And here's a thing where it is easy to make fun of World War II Wonder Woman, because a lot of it is extremely silly. And, you know, you get, first of all, extremely poorly judged depictions of our opponents in World War II and racial minorities, which is a thing you just have to watch out for when it's the 40s.
It's the 40s.
And a lot of silly stuff like Etta Candy, who's a notable supporting character over the 75 years of Wonder Woman, is this, like, hilarious sorority girl, but, like, literally eating a box of chocolates most of the time because body positivity was slow in coming to Wonder Woman.
There are a bunch of, especially on the DC end, there are a bunch of sidekicks that we just try not to think about these days.
Yeah,
like,
but what's great about Etta
She's in the
Candy is
movie.
that she passes the better than not being there test, because she's remained a big girl, and that's awesome. Because she's an amazing character, and we deserve to have characters of different sizes who are heroes. Now her name is still Etta Candy, but some things will always be with us.
That means there's a Mr. and Mrs. Candy, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So
Somewhere, Pa Candy.
they lead in
Pa Candy.
all the silliness of old comics And like she's a really great spunky character. She's always showing up with her gang of girls to get Wonder Woman out of jams. Like so
It's the Rick Jones of the Wonder
It's
Woman.
Oh my
She
god!
is.
Oh my god!
Every comic book needs a Rick Jones.
so as much as
and
is
their teen brigade.
There is even the Rick Jones of the DC universe, which is Snapper Carr.
so as much as is silly about these comics, and I preface that because I love this. There's a little monologue in the beginning. What I'm holding right now is Wonder Woman Chronicles. If you want to dip into the old stuff, this was a series of chronological reprintings of those stories. The early issues. This is volume 2, which means we're in probably like 1942.
I was going to say, because there is also, the Comixology has the Wonder Woman's celebration of 75 years reprint. Also,
that is
doesn't
wonderful. That
go
is
as
a
far.
hardcover that has excerpts from across her entire history. That's a great place to start. Wonder Woman 75th anniversary celebration. What's it called?
Yeah, it's 75. I went away.
Yeah.
Let me go back.
But it's got 75 years or 75th in the title. It's a hardcover that's about $40.
A celebration of 75 years, or you can get it on Comixology for I think about like $10
It's
right now.
$10 right now. It's
On
on
sale!
sale this week.
Yeah, the digital copy is really cheap, and it's hundreds, and it's like 350, 400 pages long.
It's got a great stuff. And these editions I think are going out of print, but there is a newer edition that says Wonder Woman: The Golden Age with a lovely either Darwin Cook or Michael Cho cover.
Almost 400 pages of Wonder Woman.
So they're
Wow,
doing
$10.
they're putting the stuff back in print in new versions. So just look for Wonder Woman: The Golden Age. But here is an actual what year was this? It's going to be 1941 or 2, I think.
Oh, wow.
Matters. 42 and 43. So this is going to be 1942.
I was going to say, because the skirt disappeared when we were into the jumpers by that
Yeah,
point.
she's got little pants. 1942 or 1943. No matter how silly, and read this for there's a highly like patriotic bias because it's 1942. But I dare you not to take this seriously. Today, the spirit of war rules supreme over the entire earth. Whence does it come? Why do human beings every generation or so since the beginning of history feel an uncontrollable urge to fight and kill one another? The ancient Greeks believed there was a god behind it all, a mighty invisible god of war who urged human beings on to conquer their fellows and destroy every man and woman who resists. The Greeks were right about a lot of things. They made great discoveries in mathematics and astronomy. They founded modern science and modern medicine. Scientists may yet prove that the Greek god of war exists. Ares, the Greeks called him, though we know him better by his Roman name of Mars. It is he who stirs up the spirit of war in the hearts of mankind and who seeks to rule this earth as he rules it now, 1942, y'all, from his iron palace on the planet Mars, a world which he conquered and named for himself. Okay, don't take every part of this seriously, but Mars and Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, have been rivals for control of this earth ever since life began. At present, Mars is far ahead in the struggle against his beautiful opponent. More than 4/5 of the entire world is at war. More than 2 billion people are involved in the present colossal conflict. Mars is triumphant. But one Amazon girl is more than a match for all Mars's cohorts. Wonder Woman is helping America win the war. And if America wins, peace will return. Again, read this without the patriot bias. The world will be ruled happily by the love and beauty of Aphrodite. Mars is worried. Frantically, he calls upon his dastardly assistants, the Earl of Greed, the Duke of Deception, and the Count of Conquest. Will they succeed? Will they bring Wonder Woman before Mars in chains? The outcome of this history-making struggle is shown in the present issue of Wonder Woman. When you have read the supreme ordeal of Wonder Woman, you will fall in love with her all over again for her courage, her beauty, and her unconquerable spirit. And here's the thing. This is just comics. But can you imagine what this meant to you if it's 1942? You know, your dad is maybe getting drafted. The world is actually in the middle of a really horrifying war. And you get a symbol of someone who not only shows that girls can punch as hard as anybody, but like is going to stand up for peace and justice at a time like that. Like, there's a reason she survived, is all I'm saying, y'all. Sorry, I just love that. Like, it combines her sort of like, she's gonna go do some superheroics in that issue, and they will probably be silly. But she does actually stand for something really significant.
And I think it's important, like you said, like to put yourself in that time. Like at that time, like if you were reading that as a little girl or even a little boy, really, like it's just, that is huge.
Which is one reason I'm so happy that we haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm so happy they're making it a period piece, and why I'm okay with changing the setting. Because if you think of her as having this recurring battle against the idea of war, like World War II is a great time to have that battle because it was an enormous and terrifying conflict. But they, in the movie, for those who haven't seen the marketing or aren't familiar with sort of the basic changes, they have moved the setting of her origin from World War II to World War I.
Which I think is a great idea for several reasons. But
I agree.
It's really neat because essentially, if you are just protesting like the pointlessness of all destroying each other, World War I is a great example.
It was
of that.
World War I is amorphous enough in a lot of people's mind. A lot of people just don't even know what it was about anymore and what happened and how we got there. But even if they don't, there is still that amorphous understanding through the culture that it was a meat grinder. It was an intense and it was a shocking event for the world because it was the first time we'd been so used to having these weird little scuttles between countries where things just sort of all fell apart. But it's one thing to have a 6-month panic attack with a bunch of swords, shields, and muskets, and it's a whole nother thing once we've got nerve gas and tanks.
Well, and this is the first war where aerial combat came into it, which completely
changed everything.
Like guns did enough to dehumanize the murder because you could shoot from afar. But now, like, you've got planes flying over battlefields, dropping mustard gas and bombs, and that's the first time that war had happened.
Chemical warfare, trench warfare.
So it's the
tactics
first war.
meeting new technology.
And there was. I wish I could remember exactly who. I've been reading some very weird books lately, and I want to say this was Wilhelm Reich, but I'm probably wrong. I'm probably not quoting the correct person, but there was a fascinating quote that I got from a lot of people sort of lost their minds. World War I scarred a generation pretty heavily. And one of the things, and this was a young man in Europe at the time who was working in statistics, and for some reason he came across the formula they were using to calculate exactly how many fake limbs they needed to start sending to the battlefront. And he was like, we have started mathematically determining exactly how many we need, and we've figured it out pretty well. Oh God, this is a terrible sign that we're now figuring out exactly how many hundreds of thousands of these we need to start producing to keep going, of like wooden arms and legs. And we're throwing them on a truck and just trucking them over before the fight's even begun. Like,
you just know.
It's not that we need them now, it's that we've already figured out that we're going to need them in about a week.
Yeah.
Oh boy. And like it was a worldwide nervous breakdown. There's a reason the UN exists, and like all this
there were reports from the battlefield of like the ground shaking so much that when bombs would fall and men are like down there with their guns, they would shake against the ground so much that it shattered their teeth. Like, it's just like, and they're being killed by unseen assailants who did not see them. Like, it's the first war that completely dehumanized the enemy in such a drastic way. So, yeah, putting Wonder Woman in that conflict is, like, that's where you have no man's land. Like, that scene of her, like, lifting herself up out of the trench, that's, like, from all accounts, that's one of the most powerful scenes in any superhero movie.
Are you talking about some specific scene from the movie that
Yeah.
I've been trying to
I have
avoid
not.
details, but
No.
Yeah.
But very much, if you're interested, reading up on the assassination of Franz Ferdinand and sort of how this, the dumbest war of all human history, and that's saying something, just cluster of dumb.
So this is how we get sort of.
That's the name of my biography.
She's got an impossible mission, which is a warrior for peace, or someone like who fights to try to stamp out war. But it is the mission being impossible doesn't make it less poignant. I do want to get into some of the
Yeah, where are we going?
There's a couple of directions we can go from here. I brought that up because Ares was one of her notable
Oh, that's right.
villains.
We had a flow through.
She's also, there are villains like notable ones, Giganta, Circe, the Greek sorceress. What I thought was funny is that if you consult the 1983 comic from just before George Perez takes over, I only accurately guessed one of the 5 when they were asked who her chief opponents were. Although you guys have gotten hints to several of them today. Because rather than Cheetah, Circe, and Giganta, we have the Duke of Deception, who you just heard about in the 1940s monologue. Angleman, who I just forgot existed. Mars, the one I could accurately guess. Mouseman, who I guess was just a real recurring problem. Maybe Cheetah took care of Mouseman.
I would hope.
And this is one that I should have remembered, Dr. Psycho, who is a sort of psychic powers villain, which is a good way to fight like a super strength hero, and who has been consistently used over time. But that was just to show the sort of relative instability. Silver Swan is another one of her big bad guys. A lot of them are drawn from mythology because that's a great way to get villains for your things.
A lot of her fights are conceptual and they're changing all the time. As part of it's like the nature of her conflict. Crime doesn't really change, and Superman's just sort of too big not to have a pantheon that just sort of stays. But her mission is always so amorphous and is always changing depending on the time and place, and is kind of has to address what's happening now. Whereas Superman and Batman don't really have to. Like, Batman has maybe had to like acknowledge that there's internet crime. It's the weirdest thing to happen to his mission. And Superman, by his very nature, is the biggest change that's happened to him. Really, is fatherhood, but not really. He was already kind of dad.
So, DeLovely says Angleman could be a bit obtuse sometimes.
Sam.
Fluffy Butt says
So
Dr.
square.
Poison. And then
Yes, I forgot Dr. Poison.
Izan
Poison.
says, what about Maxwell Lord?
Maxwell Lord wasn't really.
He's not one of her dedicated bad
Wonder
guys,
Woman
but
villain.
they do have history.
That's a whole weird moment that we may cover as we like move towards the.
Well, in the ranks of 75 years, people are going to try different things. She is a warrior who tries not to kill in most incarnations. And it's sort of inevitable that someone is going to ask, what would an exception look like? And this was the climax of one of the big DC crossovers circa 10 years ago?
I call it the great DC what the fuck, which was the never ending double down, which was
what
started
was it?
with the death and return of Superman, moved towards the Hal Jordan murders everybody, and kept
This
going
is like
through
a 15-year span.
It was a
you're
15
talking
years.
about.
It was a double down where you're like, okay, really, we're growing there. It's like, yeah. So and that was the Wonder
So
Woman.
like early
Those who-
90s or late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Like,
This was mid 2000s, I think.
The Dark Era.
and
It's
so what was the
probably,
name of this story? Or a storyline or event?
It's Infinite Crisis, right?
Infinite Crisis.
Oh, was it? It's Infinite Crisis. Okay.
I think so.
It's the as part of that story, which is like when those who were with us for the identity when we talked about Identity Crisis on a DC history episode, will sort of remember that we were talking about them kind of figuring out what the boundaries were of sort of darker or grittier storytelling.
And it's a lot like a kid
Sometimes
figuring out the
it works
boundaries of the
great,
kitchen
but-
by setting things on fire.
Well, and then questionable examples like George Perez in his mid 80s run of Wonder Woman introduces some brutal elements into the backstory of the Amazon, which sort of they're right on the edge for me of being like,
Artemis.
this is unpleasant to read, but it is an interesting use of these very serious ideas for compelling story purposes.
Artemis also, who was another character who was Wonder Woman for a little while. It was a darker, grittier take on Wonder Woman by putting a darker Amazonian character in the giving her the mantle.
So
Yeah.
Artemis was an Amazon and not the goddess of wisdom?
In this case,
Well,
it's,
okay.
yeah. Artemis is the goddess of the hunt. Athena
Oh,
is the
the
goddess
hunt.
of wisdom.
Athena's right.
Both of them have notably been patrons of Wonder Woman over the years. Obviously, she has heavy influences from, like, Artemis is literally Diana.
But and there was a much darker Wonder Woman in New Frontier, which is an amazing graphic novel.
Darwin Cook
Darwin
wrote
Cook.
and drew a retelling of the DC universe as a period piece called DC: The New Frontier.
A very 60s JFK kind of era.
Go to the moon, sort of like
go to the moon,
hopeful, optimistic.
And Wonder Woman was played as sort of a dark underpinning to that, as kind of the character in the Justice League who was sitting there going, things aren't really all that great for everybody. You are aware of that, right? And there's a very, very dark sequence. I won't spoil it for anyone, where she's in Vietnam handling that conflict with some intense brutality. But in a form that made sense. It was a very violent but on character form of violence for her at that time. If I were making that 60s Wonder Woman,
And these legitimate questions of like,
when is it not a
what
car?
is permissible in the service of liberation? Where are the limits of revenge? If injustice has been done, what are the appropriate responses? Those are the questions you can ask in a Wonder Woman story.
Yes.
I think most of the time she tends to come down, and this is what I love about her Amazonian background, is that like she knows and loves other women who would make different choices, who would sort of say like, revenge is justified, revenge is justice, and she sort of says, well, forgiveness is better if we can.
When
Like,
well written.
love, yeah. And that's sort of where the kind of weird choice to make her patron deity Aphrodite, who I think of as sort of like romantic love. The idea is that Wonder Woman's core is a deep love for all humanity. And in a lot of her best stories, that is what emerges. It is not her ability to punch, but her ability to forgive and to understand that will ultimately carry the day.
Well, and that capacity to inspire that same quality in others,
Yeah.
so that they also like, I'm no longer fighting Taliesin, now I'm embracing him.
I will only point this out because I'm sure the creators of Wonder Woman understood this, and this was the thing, was that romantic, the notion that we have of modern romantic love is very new, is not old, and it didn't exist when the Greek and Roman gods were created.
There were other versions of romantic love, though.
Yeah, but not the way that we think of it. This sort of amorous pining was not really.
The Greeks could pine like crazy.
Aphrodite was. They never mistook what Aphrodite put forward as purely intellectual. It was always both a physical and emotional manifestation. It was not gender specific. It was we had Cupid. She had Eros and over there for the more taken aback creative, like, you inspire me to poetry, hoo-ha.
Yeah.
But for Aphrodite, for Aphrodite, it was really about knowledge and respect. It was much more of the desire to know. Which I know sounds. I love Greek mythology.
Stargazer
That's a cool
1977.
So really, you could go in there and being, as long as you know your opponent, then you can't really hate them and you can't really fight them, because
Which
that
ties
knowledge.
into Wonder Woman's lasso of truth being a weapon of love.
Yes.
Because it's a sort of essential to writing Wonder Woman is that, like, you're never
Such
going
a
to put that
lovely
lasso around someone and have them be like, I'm a worthless human. Because the truth is that there's hope for everyone. And
Yeah.
that's like, so that's where it becomes sort of like, it's symbolic and a weapon, and is used beautifully in storytelling.
God, in Rebirth, it's used so well. It's
Yeah.
used so well. And
Yeah.
oh, when you got to finally read Rebirth and she uses the lasso, it's so good.
Stargazer,
Okay, what-
Stargazer 1977 is saying that it was called Bardic Love for a long
Thank you,
time.
Bardic Love.
So good work, Stargazer.
Thank you. I know I have, like, somewhere I used to read books, I swear.
Two.
So we've been talking about, guys. I want to get into sort of. We'll end with a lot more recommendations, but sort of
No, let's keep
criticism and
walking.
other sides of Wonder Woman. One of the major criticisms, many of you may remember that Wonder Woman was briefly a UN ambassador for human rights last fall, and then sort of quietly removed from the post. They just said, because they were like, well, it was never going to be forever, and I don't know exactly what their original plan was, and what, like, speculation is that they quietly dropped it in response to a lot of protest, because a lot of folks felt that she did not make a good image for women and girls around the globe, and for some very interesting reasons. One is that essentially she does look like a pinup model. And what's interesting to me, this is my particular take on that, and the Wonder Woman pants question, is that, like, we talked about how Wonder Woman is responsive to different eras and what they need, and my idea that, like, we will need her as long as the world is still imbalanced, which it is, and then after that she can just be a regular superhero. When we've achieved perfect equality in all things, it'll be fine.
So like 2019.
Yeah, sure. That's definitely happening.
Yeah,
But the
in my
nature
calendar.
of the battles that must be fought changes. And this is one thing that I think is cool about, like, her origin in World War II ties her closely to sort of the we can do it, women emerging into the workforce era of the struggle for women's rights in America. An origin in World War I is much closer to voting rights, but the idea is there's a different fight no matter when. There's a fight going on that she will reflect. And one of the things is in 1941, the battle for women to be allowed to run around in non-restrictive clothing had not been fully won yet. And so she runs around in a skirt, kind of looking at everybody else, being like, your clothes look heavy. And this is it's an intentional thing where she's just like, I'm not weighed down by all of this, like, you know, nobody's really still wearing corsets, but, like, these restrictive, like, bad shoes for walking in and all this stuff. She's like, I don't have to deal with that stuff. And over time, it evolved into full-on just running around wearing a bathing suit. And that is sort of justly, I think, like, I'm fine with her wearing pants. I don't think it's a betrayal of who she is, because that was a fight of a different time, and that fight has pretty much been won. The fight we have now in comics is the fight to sometimes be allowed to wear clothes if you are a female superhero. And that's one of those things where, like, I think she can still be Wonder Woman. I happen to hate a lot of the pants outfits they've given her. We were talking about this earlier. I brought an example from a time where they gave her a pants outfit, and I was like, I should be happy, but I just actually hate this outfit. It's a dumb outfit.
I'm a nut for the bloomers. I'm a fan of the bloomers. I will admit it's kind of my favorite if I had to call. But this
That's
is
my thing on what Wonder Woman wears and the whole running around in a bikini thing.
well, and this is
Not a
and,
bikini,
and not to not to talk out of gender term, but as an 11th wave feminist at this point, whatever the hell I am at this point, my grandmother again.
Your mileage will vary on this, but I'm
spinning
firmly
grave.
in the camp that men can be feminists.
As she gently reminded me,
as
my grandmother would gently remind me every now and then, and she was a very smart woman. Is that what people will often forget when looking at someone's outfit and judging the feminism of an outfit, is that the core of the feminist philosophy is that you can wear whatever you damn well fucking please, is really, and you're allowed to have an opinion about it. You're not really supposed to be under the assumption that opinion matters at all.
That is an essential point which must be held up alongside the essential point that when we are discussing a fictional character with 75 years of history, she has never had a chance to choose her own outfit.
No.
That is not a thing that Wonder Woman has ever been able to do. Because she is fictional, and she is controlled by the men and women who write and draw her. Unfortunately, like, very often men. Like, no slight on any of the wonderful men who've written and drawn Wonder Woman. But it's just sad that more women haven't. Read Gail Simone. Because she's great, not because she's a woman, but I'm real glad she exists.
But hey, bonus.
Yeah. Jill Thompson and Renee DeLiz have also both have reads and contributions. Anyway, we're getting there. 75 years.
Not to say that that the creators haven't had, or the writers at the time haven't had some questionable taste on occasion. And boy, there's been some moments.
So yeah, it's essential to remember both that, like, feminism means respecting individual choice, and also that a fictional character cannot be construed as having that exact choice, because someone did decide to present them in a certain manner.
Yeah.
So it is fair to judge those choices.
But it's also very Wonder Woman to wear whatever Wonder Woman's gonna wear.
And she's also ancient Greek, so there's some precedent for that.
Crypt Keeper says your grandma sounds amazing.
She does.
My grandmother was a wonderful, terrible, horrible, brilliant, fabulous, terrifying creature. I love her dearly. She's if you've ever seen Absolutely
Sounds
Fabulous,
positively Amazonian.
she was Patsy from Absolutely Fabulous on like a very serious level.
Sounds perfectly like Taliesin's grandma.
Oh, hello, darling. Yes, it's lovely to see you.
So there's the issues with her presentation, and then issues with her shifting meaning. One of my favorite pieces of gentle criticism of Wonder Woman comes via the hilarious Kate Beaton, a Canadian cartoonist who does the strip Hark a Vagrant, which is one of my favorite things. And language warning on the strips I'm about to share you, but these are three of my absolute favorite little commentaries on Wonder Woman and some of her issues. And these are intentionally silly, but there are grains of truth. Wonder Woman. This is from a calendar that I bought, which I love dearly. It's from, God, what year was this? 2013. I don't throw things away.
You still have a calendar?
It's hanging on my wall.
This explains why you're late every. Sorry.
Yes. What year is it? Where is that guy running? Well, anyway, this is Wonder Woman. Why don't you chase him? Girl, I'm wearing a strapless bathing suit and high heel boots. What would you do? Hey, watch me use my truth lasso. Shut up. And I'm also, like, I could not be any more excited about this movie, but it is dumb that she's wearing heels. That's just a, like, I like high heels when I'm going to a party. I would not wear them to battle.
To fight.
You're a wonder, and this one I really love. Like, it's like a lady in a bar going, "You're just, like, so iconic, you know, and powerful." And she's going, "What do you really like about me? What do you really like? You're just like a legend, you know." F my life, says Wonder Woman. Trinity, maybe you should revamp something. No way. Maybe your parents should just be dead. Don't be ridiculous. It would explain a lot in my experience. Have you tried being from space? That's good too. And these are all, like, they're perfectly sort of vintage. There was an era where everyone was talking about how difficult it was to make a Wonder Woman movie. Because she's just a, you know, like, people don't know her rogues gallery, and she's so hard to nail down. And there was a lot of cultural discourse about how difficult it would be to make this. And this gets at some of the sort of, like, the problems and frustrations of this period of time of being, like, First of all, she already had a successful series in the 70s. You can't make it exactly,
It's
but
still
like
iconic,
she
yeah.
has proven track record and unbelievable name recognition. How is it so hard to figure this out? And it may be that it turns out like if I get to see this movie and love it, I may be like, I'm so glad we waited until exactly this moment because this was in fact the right approach to take. But I treasure these cartoons as sort of a reflection of some of the frustrations that go with being Wonder Woman.
There was that Whedon script.
There was.
There was a Joss Whedon
And,
script. It was a good read.
Not a period piece, but very
Not a
interesting.
period piece.
Patty Jenkins, who's directing it, has been. I just found this out this week, reading some interviews that she did. She's been trying to do this movie since 2005.
That's awesome.
Like, and she's been going, like, I think on the Joss Whedon script, going to them saying, "Hey, this is a movie," and then they'd be like, "Yeah, cool." They brought in a couple other people when the DCU started. She put her name in. They were like, "Yeah, we'll call you." That stuff fell away. She kept going back. And every time she went back, she went in with the same basic premise for her story. You don't need a modernizer. She doesn't need to be gritty. She doesn't need to be part of this dark universe or anything like that. The core of her character is one that is after truth and fighting injustice, fighting for peace, no matter the cost. And she's like, that's a story people want to see. Why should we deviate from that in any way? We don't need to do Batman vs. Superman. We don't need to do Man of Steel. We don't need to see her snapping necks. That's not what she does. We don't need to do that. Stop trying to make us do that. And she's been fighting that since 2005.
Which is interestingly around the time that the storyline we alluded to earlier and didn't get into happened, where there was an out of control, a former ally of the Justice League, sort of spoilers for Infinite Crisis. An out of control former ally of the Justice League named Maxwell Lord turned out to be kind of a crazy mastermind, and got psychic control over Superman, and essentially it forced Wonder Woman into a situation where, in order to preserve like life or the entire Earth, there was some reason that like he had control of Superman and he couldn't be stopped in any other way. And she put the lasso around him and said, "Is there any way to stop you other than killing him?" And he said no, and she killed him.
That was a whole. Again, that was an era where it was all about opposite day.
I was a lot of people being like, so they don't do this, but what if they did? And some of those answers are interesting, and other ones, it's the question of like, once you've gone there, where do you go?
It's interesting that they had a book at that time called Identity Crisis, because it felt like DC was very much like,
That was a little on the nose, wasn't it?
we don't know what we
Yeah.
don't know what we are. We don't know what we're doing. We've been like these comic books from the golden age of like hope, justice, fighting crime, like all this like very kind of basic stuff in a way, but not in a
They
not
were
in a
experimenting,
pejorative,
and some of that experimenting was positive,
Yeah.
and some of it was bought
Was
off the
Identity
street corners.
Crisis.
Yeah.
Interestingly, post Infinite Crisis, she stepped away from being Wonder Woman for a while, and didn't come back until this series, which is a fun read. It's kind of like it's everything in the kitchen sink, but it's called Who is Wonder Woman? And it is written by Alan Heinberg with art by the Dodsons, Terry and Rachel Dodson. And this is particularly significant because this is sort of a mission statement about like Wonder Woman and who she is and what she stands for by the guy who is one of the credited writers of the Wonder Woman movie.
Oh.
So that also took about 10 years to come into fruition. But thank you, all of you who were just chipping away at the edges, waiting for your chance. And Alan Heinberg, who also co-created the Young Avengers.
Yes, which
Tie
we'll-
into next
we'll be
week.
getting. And the Dodsons, I mean, like, I was so pleased by that choice artistically. Like, what an interesting way of marrying
Classic and new.
the classic and new, and leaning into sort of the sexualized cheesecake, but with somebody who knows how to do it in a way that is not. I mean, like, it's just it does everything all at the same time.
But
Here,
there,
I'll-
close enough.
There we go. We got a
The
close up on that,
Dodsons,
guys.
I have mixed feelings. I
Sure.
sometimes adore them, and they like they're old favorites. I have a print of their X-Men 500 cover hanging on my wall at home. There are times where where they cross where I'm like, that one's a little too cheesecakey, and
Sure.
it's making me hard to invest in the storyline, or the acting here isn't super clear. But it's beautiful
But
stuff.
boy, is it the kitchen sink.
Yeah,
I think we
It is
should
just
also
everything.
mention that a Wonder Woman book is up for an Eisner this year.
Is it Jill Thompson? Wait,
It's,
what's up?
Wonder Woman: The True Amazon by Jill Thompson.
Yeah,
Yep.
written and drawn by. Written and painted
that's
by Jill
that's a
Thompson.
great book too.
So
that's a really
please,
great
I
book.
haven't had a chance to read that one. Tell me a little
you
bit
haven't
about
read it?
Yeah, I'm so excited, but I haven't read it yet. I'm so sorry. I didn't get through
it's-
all my reading I wanted to do for today.
It is first of all, it's beautiful. It's a retelling of her story, of her origin. I took it as sort of an alt-universe telling of it. And she, I believe, I can't remember if Zeus was her dad or if she was created by Clay. I can't remember the parentage. But the bulk of the story is that she's doted on by every woman on the island. The smartest women teach her. The strongest warriors, train her. Her mother's the wisest woman on the island. She's doted on by the best in the world at what they do, and she is raised to be basically a spoiled brat. And once she reaches sort of like late teens, early adulthood, she's like, screw all you guys. Like, I'm the princess. I can beat you all in fighting. I'm the strongest. I'm the best. And she starts taking down all the monsters that live on the island that are terrorizing everyone. And they're all like, yeah, you did it. You're kind of a jerk. Like, you kind of push it in our faces. And for whatever reason, towards the God, look at it, how pretty it is.
Jill Thompson's so rad.
Towards the end, they, she does something very selfish that impacts the island in a very negative way. And she learns all of her lessons in that one thing, and it's like, I have to live my life the way that this one person did. It's a great book. I read it like in an hour. I was just like, oh, this is so good.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't want to spoil anything,
so that's why I'm trying to. You want to plug? This is a good time for our recommendations for Wonder Woman.
This is in my opinion not a it is a recommendation because I really enjoy this book. It is not it should not be your first Wonder Woman book.
Okay.
It's Grant Morrison who I love too much to say Grant Morrison, a man who can do no wrong, because I love him too much to say that. A man who, even when he does wrong, it's pretty interesting.
That's a great way of may we all
may we all be so impressive in our successes and our failures. Bless him. He helped out with a graphic novel called Wonder Woman Earth 1, which was an attempt, I think a successful attempt, to go back to the very, very, very early Wonder Woman and try and grasp onto a lot of the problematic stuff that existed in the original Wonder Woman that has been completely ignored and erased. And a lot of it is the sexuality of the book. A lot of it is the theories of dominance and submission, and submission is victory, which is an interesting thing that it was poked upon in the original, that really kind of the notion that you achieve victory through submitting to your enemy and putting yourself out their mercy and at their will. And that by itself, it can be a victory. An interesting
combination with the fact that at various versions of Wonder Woman's powers, she literally would lose her abilities if she let a man chain her.
Yes.
Which she then ended up often having to do in order to get some other goal, but in the meantime became...
And this goes back to the story of her mother being imprisoned, the Amazons being imprisoned by Hercules. And there's a very kind of heavy graphic retelling of that.
Illustrated by Yannick.
Beautifully illustrated, very sexualized.
And
sexualized.
This is tagging off of what Perez did.
Don't get Year One and Earth One confused. Earth One is a label that they've been putting on a lot of standalone graphic novels, which kind of are sort of like alt universe from the ground up redesign. Like it's familiar, but it's different. There's a Batman one, there's a Superman one, there's Teen Titans ones, and there's.
But this is sort of its own standalone, and like it's very sexualized. It's there's a lot of it's very heavy in that direction.
I noticed when I was trying to catch up with this that I was just like, I had complained about the like bedroom eyes on the cover, where I was just like, that's an interesting choice to lead your Wonder Woman book, and then I opened it up and I was just like, oh man, the greatest image ever.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that from what you're describing, I'm only about halfway through the book, like this is the more authentic depiction of what you're about to get.
Oh, absolutely. Although and they bring I think they bring Candy really well into it. I love what they do.
Oh, I haven't gotten there yet.
Oh yeah, she I mean like they get in there like the girl brigade is in there. It's they bring all of these interesting aspects of the original character.
Looks great.
I know, she's really, really well, and she's the one who comes in there and they do a makeover on Wonder Woman. They actually like dress her up. Like the costume is because the girls get together and go nuts on her because they're you've never worn makeup? What? Oh my god. It's kind of ingenious. It's an interesting take. It's definitely
not a first
no.
timer.
You get
to die for,
and the artist to die for, and it's a great retell. It very much to sort of give the notion of where they take it, Hercules is going to sell the Amazons into sexual slavery. And is getting them to submit. Hippolyta gets a blessing from the god at the last moment and strangles Hercules to death with her own chains, releases the Amazons, and they slaughter every last one of his men. So that's the first 4 pages.
Yeah.
Rise up,
Which draws
cast off
heavily
your
on
chains.
So the Perez origin that we keep talking about, it's sort
And
of...
Wonder Woman rejects that in the book. The whole book is about her even rejecting the Amazonians. Like, don't interfere. Don't even be poisoned by their violence.
So, there's a mid-'80s run that we keep talking about, which
Oh,
was
yeah,
where
yeah, yeah.
writer-artist George Perez, with a number of partners, he was supposed to do, like, this. They had just had Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they had some, like, really big names. Like, John Byrne was going to do Superman. The big names were on their books, and they needed somebody for Wonder Woman. And I don't know how exactly they found each other. But George Perez, already a superstar because he had created the new Teen Titans with Marv Wolfman. He had just drawn Crisis on Infinite Earths. And, like, this is the kind of Wonder Woman's reputation within the industry. There's a lot of people being like, oh, she's hard to write. It's difficult. And it's like, well, I guess she's as hard as you think she is. But George Perez was not afraid. He was like, I have an idea. I can do this. He signed on for 6 months and he stayed for 5 years. And in the meantime...
What a run. Oh, what a run.
He wrote and drew. You can kind of see it all laid out. This is the front and back, and this is my copy, so I'm going to bend the cover. Sorry, guys. Of
that
his
cover.
Wonder Woman #1, and you get the full glory of Wonder Woman here, her patron goddesses, some Amazons, and a hint of this story, which I need to look into how much he was making up and how much was pre-existing. This is her mother, Hippolyta, who essentially in the George Perez version of this. It's ancient Amazon times. They are created to be an example to other folks and inspire more devotion to the gods.
Ares is fighting against, like, so if I remember correctly, Ares is like, you can't let them create them. Like, I own humanity. Stop doing this. And Zeus is basically Pontius Pilate. He's like, look, gods are going to do what they're going to do. I'm stepping away.
You said Pontius Pilate and literally did a wash your hands of this gesture.
Yeah. He was like, you know what? You guys go do your thing.
So much seminary in you, man.
Yeah, there's way too much. And Ares was like, screw this, I'm out. Like, they're not going to do it. And then the other 6 patron goddesses were like, nah, we're totally going to do it.
It's basically like the women in Hermes. Like,
Yeah.
But
They're
mostly...
like, we're going to go create and it wasn't even like, we're going to create women. It was, we're going to create a new race of humans to inspire the race that is being more or less dominated by Ares.
Yeah. So they're like, it's ancient Greek times.
Yeah.
War is pretty dominant, and we want to like create a positive idea that will also, because we're gods, and like it'll inspire us with more power because it'll inspire belief in us because they'll live up to our great ideas.
So a bit selfish, but not in a bad way.
Well,
But,
they're gods.
They're gods. They gotta eat.
They create the race of warrior women known as the Amazons, and the Amazons are essentially like rejected by patriarchal society, who is uncomfortable with really powerful women leading things and not needing dudes. And there is the like, I feel almost bad for him because Heracles, who is almost always already dealing with some kind of madness, which is Hera's fault, but that's a separate question. He gets corrupted sort of by Ares, and who puts sort of whispers in his head that basically say like the Amazons think you're nothing. And he kind of goes and he gets one of Hercules' actual tasks in mythology was to get the girdle from Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons. So they take this bit of story and they say he got that girdle, but the exact manner is an interesting, like in the George Perez version, they fight, she wins, he goes, wow, you're awesome, I super respect you, let's all party. They all go to party. And I think he drugs her or something like that. Basically, in the middle of the night, sneak attack from all the dudes who basically, like, the most dishonorable thing you can do is, like, eat and drink with people and then attack them in the middle of the night and lock them up.
I think he drugs her. I was reading it through it last night.
Yeah.
And he drugs her, and she's like, what have you done? He's like, you really think you can beat me? And it's just like, well, she did. She totally did. Now you're just being a dick.
So, interestingly, later on in the Perez run, they will make him pay for this. First of all, in his run, there's a schism, basically, of the Amazons. The Amazons are sort of like, they break out of their chains, They kill a bunch of people, and they're become kind of factions of the people who are like, nah, that was the right call. Like those guys had it coming, and the ones who are sort of like, we're pretty sure we strayed away from our sacred mission there. Sorry, goddesses. And the goddesses are like, here's how you can make it up to us. We're going to give you guys a mission. Live on your island by yourself because clearly the outside world won't accept you. And then this is a part of his online storyline, and also guard these monsters. And that'll be how you pay us back for abandoning your ideals there. And letting yourselves all be chained, which is a mean thing to be mad at them for, but gods are weird. Anyway.
Silly gods.
Guess who recently re-engaged with the George Perez material and has a lot of feelings?
Yeah.
What's funny is that I read the Perez thing, run, or I started on the Perez run after I read a bit of Hiteka and a bit of the Rebirth run, and even with that, as much as I love what I read here and as much as I read in that, the Perez run, I was like, oh my god, I think I'm in love with Wonder Woman.
Yeah, welcome to the Perez run.
I was just like, oh my god, because again, like you said, it was like Infinite Crisis. That art is so good, and just the way it was told,
Perez weaves an absolutely beautiful, and you'll fall madly in love with a random academic lady named Capitelis.
You know me so well.
Well, and this is how we got both Wonder Girls eventually, which are a whole nother story.
Well, they existed already because obviously he'd already been writing Donna Troy and New Teen Titans for years.
Donna Troy, obviously, but I was thinking of Cass there.
Yeah. When does Cass come in?
A little later.
So George Perez draws from he's obviously a master at superhero storytelling, and he just has the maximum amount of fun with the mythological setting. He also updates her origin, puts it in what was then the modern day of the mid '80s. She's on the Johnny Carson show. I forgot about that. Yeah, it's she meets Reagan. Oh, it's great. Well, because essentially, once again, they're sort of like, what's the '80s version of the threat of war? And it's like, well, there's us and there's Russia, and there are these bombs, and so it's kind of they build a story out of this idea of war dominating.
Of the nuclear Cold War.
Arc,
Found candy again. Wow.
Yeah.
So I think we've got about 10 minutes.
Oh no! Okay.
So, do you have any other recommendations you want to throw out, or should I just get right into questions?
Talk about. Well, this is a dubious recommendation because it is hard to find. It is out of print right now, but
it is on Comixology for $5.
Not hard to find at all. It's hard to find in paper. Very easy to find on the internet.
What's funny is that I tried to find it last week on Comixology, and it was available for pre-order, and I was like, it's a digital comic. I gotta pre-order it, and then it came out last night, and I was like, this is the one I wanted to read very much, and I'm going to read it now.
Yay! So this is a really interesting story. This is a totally standalone Wonder Woman story. From
those four.
It's just an interesting, I'm curious how this would play. If anyone reads this as your first Wonder Woman, tweet me and let me know what you think. Because it's an interesting side of her, where she's sort of... It draws on ancient Greek ideas. It is a standalone story of an ancient Greek ritual of supplication, where essentially the idea of the Hecatea is if you go to someone and plead for their protection, they must give it to you.
It's sort of like needing amnesty.
Yeah.
That's another way to put it, is
amnesty. It's during her status as an ambassador, and a girl arrives at her doorstep and asks for amnesty, and Wonder Woman doesn't ask why. And then Batman comes looking for that girl. And as he typically does, Batman has really good reasons for coming looking for that girl. But Wonder Woman's like, you don't understand. There are rules, and I won't break them even for you, my friend. So,
We're friends.
And I'll say that the Batman Wonder Woman relationship is one of my favorites. And everyone does the Wonder Woman Superman relationship thing, and I think
nobody does. Two people do.
In their head they do it though. That's what I'm saying. Not in the book.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much only because, in my opinion, their costumes have similar colors. I don't think there's any other reason that there's not a lot about.
They're both sweet and hopeful. I can see they're both very strong. I can see why people have done this. In and out of canon, it's usually not a thing, but it has been.
Yeah, much like putting much like any romantic interest in any Batman movie other than Catwoman, you just sort of go, why are we stopping the movie for this for 10 minutes? Wonder Woman and Superman together is one of those things that never really... And I'm just talking also philosophically, Wonder Woman and Batman have a lot to talk about. There's a lot there, and this is one of those stories where that comes in really, really well, where there's philosophically they have a lot in common and a lot of differences, and there's a lot of nuance that can be explored there. Whereas, Superman, Wonder Woman, I'm middly on.
Running out of recommendation time. This is a thing I'm so glad exists. I hope that they will do a paperback version that's a little more affordable now. But there is a really high quality, all ages retelling of Wonder Woman's story, The Legend of Wonder Woman by Renee DeLiz and Ray Dillon.
I believe that's also on Comic Shop.
It is. It came out actually digitally first in small chunks.
Oh, that's right.
And then they did paper versions, and then they did this nice collection, which retells her origin for our times in a way that I can actually hand to kids who will hopefully be less traumatized by it.
Oh, God.
Look at their Etta. Look at their cute little Etta. Yeah, cute little Etta. So that is probably a fantastic place to start.
Wonder Woman 75 years celebration on Comixology.
The Gail Simone stuff, I think I'm waiting on them to do a new edition of it because a lot of it is out of print. But she wrote a lot of stories that you can jump into basically any one of them, and it's like Wonder Woman and Beowulf. This is rad. That's a thing that happened. Wonder Woman in a fight club with Black Canary. Sure, that's a thing that can happen.
Oh, God, that Wonder Woman Batgirl, the one you recommended me.
Ooh.
That's continuity
it's one
heavy.
individual story, and it might be hard to find. I think it's Brave and the Bold 33.
I'd have to double check, but
that's what I mean by hard to find. Hard to pin down the right one.
I can pin it down.
Essentially a girls' night out story featuring Wonder Woman, Zatanna, and Batgirl.
33.
Jerry Michael Straczynski.
Brave
Art
and
by
Bold?
Cliff Chang.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, art by Cliff Chang, who would go on to illustrate one of my favorite runs of Wonder Woman, where they completely muck up the mythology, and I kind of just forgave them because the story was so much fun to read. Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chang wrote Wonder Woman in the New 52. It was one of the standout books of the New 52 just because it was really great storytelling and really beautiful art.
Pulling up the cover right now.
Even if I'm not a huge fan of what they did with the Amazons, but it was just one of those, fine, I love this book.
So here's the cover. Wonder Woman, Zatanna, Batgirl. It's a little continuity heavy, but it's an amazing story.
And it's just one standalone issue.
standalone
You don't
issue.
need 32 or 31. It was Brave and the Bold is an anthology book, so different story in each
I'm
issue.
gonna go read it today.
It's great.
Yay! Okay, New 52.
And I guess
Greg
Rebirth.
Rucka, Wonder Woman Year 1, Rebirth Volume 1, or the issue before this that's the volume before this that's numbered number 1 that says Wonder Woman Rebirth is the present day story stuff. Balance
really
it with
good.
this. They're both
But you need both.
excellent.
Read that first.
Wonder Woman by George Perez, Wonder Woman the Golden Age. Wonder Woman.
Did those.
Greg Rucka has written, in between Hecate and his Rebirth stuff, he did an actual run on Wonder Woman for a couple of years, which is now newly collected in this.
So much Wonder Woman.
What am I forgetting?
Yeah, this one is great. I really like this.
really
It's
good.
her fighting. It's her fighting.
I think
Batman.
this is a good. This is a solid primer.
Add in
This
the
is solid.
Azzarello Chang that I forgot to bring, which I think it's a fine first Wonder Woman just because it's a really exciting story that makes you fall in love with her, and that's really all you need.
So
it's just got weird mythology choices.
Steven Bad Boy Naruto asks, "What was the name of the arc where she was blind?"
I think that was in Greg Rucka's. What was that called?
That was too long ago for my brain.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know the name of
apologize
the
in
I
advance.
read it at the time. Oh man.
Is it in this one or is it in the next one? Guys, and there's even more stuff. There's
There's
stuff where
so
her
much
mother
shit.
became
75
Wonder
years.
Woman. There's
75 years.
75 years.
Ryu Red Wing says, "Okay, this is my first time watching. Hi,
Hey.
Hi, thanks
welcome
for
to
watching.
it." They ask, "Someone
Thanks,
do me a
Chief.
favor and tell me the awesome lady's Twitter because I need more of her in my life."
That will be
At
how we.
Wonder Woman movie, it's no,
I
not
believe
me.
they're talking about you.
No, yes, me.
At
okay.
Enthusiamy
Yeah.
is the Twitter. If you didn't see it in the chat.
Well, we're going to be doing a pick of that now because it's almost time for us to go.
Yeah, very true.
Oh,
We
man.
should mention that we have wonderful.
Thank you, Ken Wynn, for
Ken
this
Wynn.
absolutely beautiful Wonder Woman on our board today.
She's so intense. It's great.
Peace
ne-
and justice and equality.
Next week is Young Avengers,
Next week is Young Avengers.
and we're going to be talking about. We're going to be delving into teen heroes, specifically the Marvel teen heroes
There
a
are
little bit.
two major teams that have worked on that, and I love them both to death.
I think,
so.
and we may hit Avengers Academy just a little bit in there as well.
So
just to
we're
tap it.
doing Marvel teens
Marvel-
or just
Marvel teen.
teens?
That is one
Marvel
specific
team.
set of Marvel teams.
Marvel
I'm
Avengers.
Going beyond
Yeah,
that
no,
because
no, like-
going beyond that, I'm an X-Men kid, and there's so
Oh no
many teams.
no! We're just Marvel Avengers, just Young Avengers. We're
Young
going to stick
Avengers,
to the Young Avengers.
Avengers Academy.
The Academy just is kind of going to be tangential there, but
Okay.
I mean, if
I
we
do
have
love
time,
it. I just,
Yeah.
we'll get into the X-Men, especially since the Avengers ends with an all-teen Marvel teen rave. It's kind of
I don't think I read the ending.
Oh,
Oh my god!
The
I'm
end
so
is
excited for
Marvel
this.
Boy DJing for everybody, like
Yeah.
vinyl and all. Like he pulls out his vinyl collection, takes off
course.
his shirt, and goes nuts.
Of course,
it's great.
this is your favorite.
Oh,
of
it's
course,
amazing.
I love you so much.
love
So places to start, I'm gonna lean towards the current Rucka Rebirth or the George Perez. Those
Question.
are probably our
For-
top two, or Legend of Wonder Woman for the all ages.
Shovek Zani wants to know what was the name of the 75th anniversary thing?
Yeah, we looked it up. You
I
looked
did
it up.
look it up. I was a terrible
A
person. I forgot it was.
celebration of
It's-
75 years, something like that.
It's currently $10 on Comixology. if you
Wonder
have that
Woman: A
account.
Celebration of 75 Years. It is 400 pages for, I believe, $10.
And
right
I
now
looked
on
it up
Comixology.
earlier, and it's got so much stuff from the Golden Age,
Everything.
from Silver Age. It's all
It's
of
great.
her,
A
some of her
story from
best
here.
stories. Like, yeah.
It is the sampler platter.
Yeah. They also did this like hardcover set for the 75th anniversary. That's like one volume from Simone and one volume from Perez and one volume I think from Rucka. And it's like, oh, it's so beautiful. And I haven't bought it for myself, but I want it.
I'm so excited for this movie.
Yeah. Thursday night. Next Wednesday, the world will have changed.
Friday night after you've had Critical Role.
75 years.
We should probably bow out now.
So yeah,
Wrap it up. All
it's
yours.
about dang time.
It's about dang time.
Yeah.
Woman hits theaters officially Friday, so Thursday. You know how
Thursday
theater releases
previews.
work now. But she's what? No matter, even if the movie were garbage, there'd be 75 years of amazing comics and funny comics and moving comics and this potent symbol that you can pry from all of our cold dead hands.
And tweet at us what you like, what you think of the movie, and what your
Yeah.
thoughts are. And
I will not look at those tweets until next week when I've seen the movie, but yes.
That's true. Spoiler tag your tweets, please. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Amy Dallen.
yay, Amy!
Where can they find you on the internet? Again,
Enthusi Amy. ENTHUSIAMY.
I'm Taliesin Jaffe. You can find me at Executive Goth, anywhere that matters, and and on Critical Role on Thursdays.
Thursday nights, not at Wonder
nights,
Woman.
not
on
at Wonder
Thursday
Woman.
nights.
And they can find you on
Poor
Friday
Tozer.
being the Doctor in Doctor Who.
That's right.
In the morning, on noon on Friday, PST.
And my name is Matt Key, at the Matt Key on Twitter, and I'm wearing a Wonder
You're
Woman
so
kit.
fabulous.
Your
Trying to
breath
give you-
is so
Closing
wonderful.
thoughts. If your little boy wants to be Wonder Woman for Halloween, bless you. Please support him. We can only get to the future if we all have the same heroes, and they are for everyone. So, Wonder Woman.
And if your little girl wants to be Superman,
Heck yeah.
heck yes, be Superman.
Be your heroes.
Be your heroes. All right, bye guys. We'll see you next week.